Before we start, thank you for being here. I don't know if anyone will believe me. Maybe I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't lived every second of it. My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 62 years old. And what I'm about to tell you sounds like the kind of story people make up to scare children or get attention online. But this is not fiction. This is my life. It started on a Sunday, nothing unusual about it. I woke up, same as always, early, before the sun, because my body doesn't let me sleep in anymore. I sat up in bed and instinctively looked to the right, to where my husband should have been, except the bed was empty, and not just empty, cold, as if no one had slept there. But in my mind, vividly, clearly, I remembered him. James, tall, quiet, coffee before anyone spoke. He always kissed my forehead before heading to work. I could see his face, his smile. I could hear the way he cleared his throat when he was thinking. I even remembered the exact cologne he wore, that musky, woodsy scent. But there was no sign of him, no wallet on the nightstand, no clothes in the closet, not even a toothbrush in the bathroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, confused. Maybe he left early. Maybe we had a fight, I couldn't remember. Then I called out, "James?" and silence answered. Still in my nightgown, I walked into the hallway. Something felt off. Familiar, yet foreign, like I was walking through a replica of my own house. Same structure, same walls, but sterile, lifeless. I looked at the family photos on the wall. My heart jumped. There was one missing, the biggest one, the one of us, me, James, and our 2 daughters, Abigail and Rosie. Our last Christmas together, we were all wearing matching pajamas that said, Harper Family 1999. I froze. The frame was gone. I opened the closet where I kept all the old albums and scrapbooks. Gone. Every trace of them. James, the girls, wiped clean. I stood in my living room trembling. I whispered their names aloud. Abigail, Rosie, James, and that's when I felt it. A rush of grief so deep it hollowed me out from the inside, because I remembered them. Every birthday, every laugh, every scraped knee I'd kissed better. I remembered Abigail's obsession with stars and space. I remembered Rosie's favourite stuffed rabbit, the one she dragged everywhere until it fell apart. How could they not exist? I thought. Maybe I'm sick. Maybe it's early dementia. I've read stories, people imagining entire relationships, but it didn't feel imagined. These memories didn't come with fuzziness or confusion. They came like a flood, sharp and painful. And then something inside me whispered, "Check the basement." I hadn't been down there in years. My knees don't like stairs anymore, but I moved like I was possessed. I flicked on the basement light and descended slowly. Each creak of the steps felt like it echoed through another life. The room was dusty, cluttered with boxes I hadn't touched since my husband's... Wait, since when? I couldn't remember a funeral, a goodbye, only that he wasn't there now. I opened the largest box marked XMAS. Inside were ornaments, and beneath them something wrapped in an old scarf. I unfolded it. It was a photograph of me holding a child, but not a child I remembered, or at least not one whose name I could place. The photo was aged, and on the back, written in faded ink, "To Evelyn, never forget them." That's when my legs gave out. I collapsed to the floor, clutching the photo like it could anchor me to something real, because, deep in my bones, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. After I finally pulled myself together in that dusty basement, one thing became crystal clear. These weren't just random fragments of memory. They were pieces of a life, one someone or something was trying desperately to erase. For days I searched the house for any clue, any sign that could explain the emptiness where my family should have been. I asked neighbours, old friends, even my doctor. No one remembered James, Abigail, or Rosie. They looked at me with the same worried eyes, as if I was losing my mind or trapped in some delusion. But my memories didn't lie. I knew their birthdays, the special dates, the little moments only a mother could know. I knew Abigail's favourite chocolate cake recipe, the nights I'd read Rosie to sleep, the way James would always hum softly while cooking breakfast, and no one else remembered. Desperate for answers, I decided to take a drive, somewhere outside the town that seemed to have swallowed my family whole. I thought if I could just see the places they loved, maybe I could find proof they ever existed. I drove to the old cemetery on the edge of town, the place where generations of families were buried. I didn't expect to find anything, but something inside told me to look. I wandered past rows of weathered headstones, my heart pounding. Then, in a neglected corner, I saw them. 3 graves, almost hidden under overgrown grass. The names were etched deep into the stone. James Harper, Abigail Harper, Rosie Harper. My hands trembled as I knelt beside the markers. The dates confirmed it. They had died years ago. But how? Why had I lived all these years believing they were still alive? Tears blurred my vision. I felt like my world was splitting in two. The woman who lived here now, and the woman who had lost everything in silence. I called the local records office the next day. The clerk looked puzzled when I asked for death certificates. They had all 3 on file, died in a tragic fire years ago. But the fire was never talked about in town. No memorials, no news reports, like it had been erased too. Why was I the only one left holding these memories? Or was I the only one who remembered the truth? After discovering the graves, a heavy silence settled over me, like the world had closed its eyes and refused to remember what had happened. But I couldn't accept that. I couldn't just forget my family again. Not like this. I started digging deeper. I visited the local library, searched newspaper archives, anything I could find about the fire that supposedly took their lives. But the more I looked, the more I realized something strange. Every mention of the fire had been scrubbed. No articles, no reports, no obituaries. It was as if the event had been wiped from history, erased like my family, from everyone's memories except my own. One day I met an old man at the library, the kind who seemed to know all the town's secrets. I showed him a photo of James, Abigail, and Rosie. His eyes widened, then quickly darted away. "They were here once," he whispered, voice trembling. "But some stories aren't meant to be told. Not anymore." I pressed him for answers. He warned me to be careful, to stop asking questions, but I couldn't stop, because the memories kept flooding back, more vivid, more real every day. I remembered a hidden room in our old house, a place where James would sometimes disappear for hours, a locked drawer I was never allowed to open. With trembling hands, I went back home and searched for that drawer. Behind old furniture I found it, a small, rusted box covered in dust. Inside were letters addressed to me. They spoke of fear, secrets, and a warning that some truths were too dangerous. And suddenly everything made sense. My family wasn't just erased from memory. They were deliberately hidden, buried in silence, and erased from history. And I was the last one holding on to their story. The letters painted a terrifying picture. James wasn't just a husband and father. He had been involved in something dangerous, something that put our entire family at risk. According to the letters, James had stumbled upon evidence of corruption within the town's most powerful figures, people who controlled everything behind the scenes: the fire, the erasing of our memories, the silence from the town. It was all part of a plan to bury the truth forever. The last letter was a desperate plea from James, warning me to stay away, to forget everything, to disappear if I wanted to live. But here I was, piecing it all together instead. My hands shook as I held the letters, realizing I was dealing with something much bigger than a lost family. It was a conspiracy to erase people, to rewrite history, to make sure certain truths never saw the light of day. But why me? Why had I been left with these memories when everyone else forgot? Was it a cruel joke, or a warning? Then I found the final clue, a map folded carefully inside the box. It led to a place deep in the woods, marked simply as the last memory. I knew what I had to do. With nothing but a flashlight and the letters in my pocket, I set out into the dark forest, hoping to find answers, hoping to finally uncover the truth buried beneath decades of lies. The path was rough, tangled with roots and shadows that seemed to watch me. Every step felt heavier, like the past was weighing me down. And then I saw it, a small clearing, in the center of which stood a weathered stone monument. Carved into the stone were names, dozens of them, people erased like my family, forgotten by the world, and at the very bottom, my name. Seeing my name carved among those forgotten was like a punch to the gut. Why was I still here? Why had I not been erased like them? I realized then that my memories, painful as they were a kind of resistance, a way to keep their stories alive, even when the world wanted to forget. I sat by the monument for a long time, tears streaming down my face, feeling both crushed and strangely empowered. I was the last guardian of a family erased by time, by fear, by lies, but I wasn't going to let their lives be forgotten again. I returned home and began recording everything, the memories, the letters, the names on that monument. I started this channel because these stories deserve to be told, to be remembered, because sometimes the last memories are all we have left. If you've ever felt forgotten, erased, or like a ghost in your own life, know this: your story matters. Even if no one else remembers, hold on to your truth, because memories are powerful. They're a bridge to the past, a weapon against oblivion, and sometimes they're the only thing that keeps us human. Thank you for listening. I hope my story helps you hold on to your own.